So now we're going to modify our TCP server, and we're going to use Go routines so that our TCP server can handle more than one connection at a time. And we are also going to, in the last video, we were writing to the connection. In this video, we are going to read from the connection. And so that's the game plan. And I'm going to teach you about bufio scanners and how you use scanners, because we're going to use that to read from the incoming connection. And by the way, we're going to connect to our TCP server using a web browser. And that will allow us to see how the request that comes in, the text that comes in, is going to adhere to the hypertext transfer protocol according to RFC 7230, set forth by the IETF. So RFC, request for comments, IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force. And just giving you some of the technical knowledge so that when you hear it out in the field, if you're new to this stuff, you're not like, what the heck? All right. So, and the last one, and some people freak out when you start dealing with putting together a server, and they think, oh man, and just remember, this is a simple three-step process. You're going to listen, you're going to accept, and once you accept, you get a connection, and then you could read or write from that connection. We do that already with our phones. I'm always listening for the little chimes this thing makes. And when one comes in, I then see if I want to accept it. And if I do, I then have a connection to which I can read and write. I can, listen from it, read from it, and I could write to it. Hey, what's up? And so listen, accept gives you a connection, and then you could read and write to that connection. So that's the basic. So in this last one, we listened, we got our listener, we accepted eternally what's going on, we get our connection, and then we wrote back to our connection. In this one, we're going to listen, and then, we defer the close of that listener, we get a listener, and then we're eternally looping over, right? Is there anything to accept? We accept it, we get a connection, and then I'm going to launch a Go routine and pass this off to my own function, which I created. And I called it handle because I'm going to handle this connection. And so I pass my connection into that, and here comes my connection. I want to make sure I defer close that connection. And now I use bufio scanner. I get a scanner from bufio new scanner. How does bufio new scanner work? Because that's what we're going to use to read from the connection. So if you go to my Twitter account, @ToddMcLeod, I just posted these things. And you can look for, this is a nice little hashtag, Golang snippet. And Golang snippet is a little hashtag I use for a whole bunch of snippets. And so you could go in, and other people are starting to use it too. So that's kind of cool. But anyhow, this code is also right here at, I called that 026. My naming convention there is just 26. At 26 bufio new scanner. So I don't know. Might as well just look at it at the playground. I already have it there. And so the first one that we do is this one right here. Pa-ching. Oh, I already have these open. Nice. So I have a string, and that string is the lyrics to Running Down a Dream. I really like that song. Tempted to sing it. And we do bufio new scanner, strings, new reader, and then we get a scanner, and then we do for scanner scan. So what's that doing? If we go to bufio, and we look at, here's type scanner, and when you do new scanner, you get a pointer to a scanner. When you have a pointer to a scanner, you have all of these methods right here, right? And so then I could use the scan method. We're going to use scan, and we're going to use text. So scan returns a bool, so that's pretty cool, and you can see how that's being used right here. Well, let's look at the one we were looking at. You can see how that's being used right there. For scanner scan. So that's going to be returning a bool every time it scans. So you can kind of get a sense of, oh, it's going to be scanning, 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 scanning. And when it's no longer giving us something, it'll be false. And so we look at what scan says. And scan advances a scanner to the next token, which will then be available through the bytes or text method. So we'll be using text to get the text of that. It returns false when the scan stops, either by reaching the end of the input or an error. All right. So eventually, end of input, this will return false, and it'll exit. And so here, strings new reader, And by the way, it'll break, it automatically by default breaks on new lines. So by default, it gives you the line of text, and that's, you could change that if you want. So this will scan and it'll continue to give me a line each time it scans. But to get that line, I have to say, give me that line, which is scanner.text, and I assign that to line, and then I just print line. And I get, I felt so good, like anything was possible. I hit cruise control and rubbed my eyes. The last 3 days, the rain was unstoppable. It was always cold, no sunshine. Yeah, I'm running down a dream that never would have come to me. Working on a mystery, going wherever it leads, running down a dream. There we go. All right, so we could also change that, and we could split. We could change the scanner. So we get our scanner, and I could call this anything. I could have called that Winnie the Pooh, right? But bufio new scanner, and then I pass in that text, and I need to make it a reader, so I do strings new reader. And I could do scanner split, and I could split on words, in which case it gives me the words. Or I could do scanner split and bufio scan runes, and a rune is a character in Go. It comes from like J.R. Tolkien or something. A rune is a character in an alphabet. And so there are those alphabetical characters. So this is a scan func, and you could actually go in and create your own scan func and split on any delimiter you want. So there's a lot of flexibility there. So that's how we use that. So let's see how we're actually using it. Bufio new scanner takes a reader, so we give it the connection, we get our scanner, we're going to scan, and that'll give us each token, which by default is a line. So we say scanner text, give me the line, and then print that line, and then go back up, and we defer the connection right here to close it, and then we say, hey, the code got here. But our code is never get here. Is never going to get here. And we'll see that in action. I'll explain it in 1 second. But let's first just watch it running. So the first thing I'm going to do is fire it up. Fire it up. Fire it up. And then I'm going to go to Firefox, because Chrome does a deal where it like makes 2 requests and I just want to get 1. So I'm going to go to localhost 8080. I'm calling in from a web browser. And so HTTP is running on top of TCP, and HTTP uses TCP, and we're going to prove it right now. So in a browser, right, I hit that, my request comes in, I got each line, and I printed them out. That's what I asked it to do, right? I said fumpt print line, that line, and here you can see the Hypertext Transfer Protocol according to RFC 7230, put together by the IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force, RFC request for comments. Just giving you the terminology, so when you're out in the world, you kind of have that understanding and background of what's going on. And you can see right there is that first part, right? We have the request line, and then we have the headers, and then nothing. That was the request coming in. And that request line has the method, the URI, right? Or URL, however you want to think about it, which is the route, and then HTTP 1.1. So I'm going to stop this, Control C, and then clear it, and just try something. And I'm going to go back to Firefox and put in some route or another. Kapow. Oh, did I fire it up? I need to fire it up first. So stop that. I don't know where to stop it in Firefox, because I just downloaded Firefox and I need a new tab. I'm so used to working on Mac. There we go. All right, cool. Let's fire this up. Pow. Run it. Windows. Control V. And if you're wondering why I'm doing this on Windows, as people did, like, man, why are you working on Windows? Because that's where my recording machine's set up. So recording I have set up on Windows. Something or another. Something or another. How sweet is that? Right? Totally cool. And yeah, so anyhow. All right, so that's getting back the HTTP deal. And we could see that printed out. And then you could see that this never printed. Code got here. Because scan or scan will return false when it reaches the last line or an error. and you've got a wide open stream. You have a connection. And so it's like, is more common. It's kind of like when you're on the cell phone. Are you still there? Right? You're continuing to listen. You're in that loop where you're just scanning the connection, and then it goes silent. But you can check, are you still there? Right? And your scanner doesn't know to do that. So that's just like an eternal loop. It never gets to defer connection close. It never gets to code got here. And so we're going to see how we could break out of that, and more functionality we could build into our servers coming up next.